Hello, it's Graham again. First of all, I just want to, I want everyone to know that you shouldn't take what I'm saying to heart. Don't let it get you angry, happy, or worst of all, don't let it make you apathetic or complacent. I'm just someone bringing information forth, kind of like the news, but I don't have any advertisers to satisfy, no shareholders, no agenda to uphold. I'm not trying to sell you a politician or a war. I have 2 strikes against me on YouTube, one more and I'm gone. And I could care less. I don't monetize anything. I don't care if anyone subscribes. I only want us all to pick apart what we're being sold. All of it. In the coming weeks and months, maybe years, it will be up to the individual to discern his or her information, to be as careful with it as panning for gold. And when you find a little nugget of truth for yourself, consider yourself lucky. Then it'll be your responsibility to share it with whomever you choose, because truth is now a valuable commodity. And I don't think anyone would argue with me about that. And one thing that never fails to surprise me is how many people rely on someone else to be their compass, their validation. They take no stock in what their own heart or discernment might divine for them, but rather someone or something outside themselves. This way, when their compass appears to have failed them, they can not only lash out, but they also absolve themselves of all responsibility. It's sad, really, when every individual is at a crossroads, and if you can't trust your own compass by now, you're doomed. And I realize that this sounds somewhat melodramatic, but if you still think your government is adding fluoride to your drinking water because they truly care about your teeth, then I'm truly sorry, because yes, you are doomed. Now on to our regularly scheduled deprogramming. So we're back into Elon Musk. I smell something, part 3. And here we see Elon Musk is making implants to link your brain with a smartphone and read your mind. I think this is the Neuralink project that he's working on. After electric vehicles and rockets, Elon Musk now wants to read your mind and insert Bluetooth-enabled implants into your brain to enable telepathy and repair motor function in people with injuries. Well, it sounds good. Speaking on Tuesday, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX said his Neuralink devices will consist of a tiny chip connected to 1,000 wires measuring 1/10 the width of a human hair. All right, let this freeze up here. The chip features a USB-C port, the same adapter used by Apple's MacBooks, and connects via Bluetooth to a small computer worn over the ear and to a smartphone, Musk said. If you're going to stick something in the brain, you want it to be not to be large. Well, that's funny, Musk said, playing up the device's diminutive size. Neuralink, a startup founded by Musk, says the devices can be used by those seeking a memory boost or by stroke victims, cancer patients, quadriplegics, and others with congenital defects. The company says up to 10 units can be placed in a patient's brain. 10 units. 10 of these chips. The chips will connect to an iPhone app that the user can control. The devices will be installed by, boy, I smell a lot of lawsuits here. The devices will be installed by a robot built by the startup. So he's making the, so that cuts out malpractice, maybe. What are you going to sue a robot? Musk said that the robot, when operated by a surgeon, oh, there's the surgeon's connection, will drill 2-millimeter holes in a person's skull. The chip part of the device will plug the hole in the patient's skull. The chip part of the device will plug the hole in the patient's skull. The interface to the chip is wireless, so you have no wires poking out of your head. That's very important. It almost sounds like he's just trying to be a goof here. This sounds like a pretty major deal. Trials could start before the end of 2020, Musk said, likening the procedure to LASIK eye correction surgery, which requires local anesthetic. There's a little video here. Let's see what they say.
Neuralink. So that's actual video from the company. So if you want to get a sense for what it's like to work at Neuralink, that video is indicative of the atmosphere of Neuralink. It's an incredibly talented team, and you're going to hear a lot from them tonight. So we're going to actually go quite into depth on what we're doing, why we're doing, how we're doing it. And I'm just incredibly impressed with the caliber of talent at Neuralink. And in fact, the main reason for doing this presentation is recruiting. And this will be a slow process where we will gradually increase the issues that we solve until ultimately we can do a full brain-machine interface. Yeah, this is going to sound pretty weird, but achieve a sort of symbiosis with artificial intelligence. But I think with a high bandwidth brain-machine interface, I think we can actually go along for the ride. And we can effectively have the option of merging with AI. I think this is extremely important.
Composed of nearly 100 billion cells called neurons.
Neurons in your
Neurons
brain.
come in many complex shapes, but generally they have a dendritic arbor, a cell body called a soma, and an axon. The neurons of your brain connect to form a large network through axon-dendrite junctions called synapses. At these connection points, neurons communicate with each other using chemical signals called neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are released from the end of an axon in response to an electrical spike called an action potential. When a cell receives enough of the right kind of neurotransmitter input, a chain reaction is triggered that causes an action potential to fire, and the neuron to in turn relay messages to its own downstream synapses. Action potentials produce an electric field that spreads from the neuron and can be detected by placing
Looks like a
electrodes
railroad
nearby,
spike.
allowing recording of the information represented by
Our goal is to record from and stimulate spikes in neurons and do so in a way that is orders of magnitude more than anything that's been done to date.
He doesn't sound very sure about this thing. Personally, it doesn't interest me in the least, but I know people will flock to something like this.
It's not like a major operation.
A LASIK type of thing.
It's sort of equivalent to sort of a LASIK type of thing. So this is in contrast to
It's FDA approved. It's got to be good then, right?
The best FDA approved system, which is like a Parkinson's deep brain stimulation, a thing which would have on the order of 10 electrodes. So the system, even in version 1 that we're going to unveil today, is capable of 1,000 times more electrodes than the best system out there, and they're all read and write. So this is really quite, I think, I mean, for something to be 1,000 times more than what is publicly approved is quite a big difference. So there's very tiny threads that are about a tenth, roughly, of the cross-sectional area of a human hair. So they're extremely tiny threads. In fact, the threads that we have,
stuck with
like I said, even in version 1,
right,
are about the same size as a neuron.
Here.
So if you're going to go stick something in your brain, you want it to not be giant of these lines. The operation on a per chip basis, it involves just a 2 millimeter incision, which is dilated to 8 millimeters, and then the chip is placed through that, and then it goes back to being 2 millimeters, and you can basically glue it shut. You don't even need a stitch. And then the interface to
glue it shut. He says you don't even need a stitch
to the chip
right.
is wireless.
I'll leave a link, so if anybody's curious about what else he has to say about this, you can check it out. Okay, let's go back over to, here's something interesting. Elon Musk, he's over at IMDb, the database for actors. Elon Musk was born on June 28, 1971 in Pretoria, South Africa as Elon Reeve Musk. He is an actor and producer known for Iron Man 2, Machete Kills, and Why Him? He was previously married to Tallulah Riley and Justine Musk. Well, that's interesting. So, all right, let's go over to Miles Mathis. And I need to enlarge this. So we left off with the valuation of Tesla Motors. We see the original owners, CEOs, startup people. And then we ended up over here. Let's see. And then there was the problem of the valuation of Tesla Motors. According to the mainstream sources, it posted profits for the first time in the first quarter of 2013. So how did Musk pull in a 2012 salary of $78.2 million? He is said to be the highest paid CEO in the world for that year, a year in which his company was not profitable. How does that work? As usual, none of this makes any sense. It also makes no sense for Tesla Motors in 2014 to open up all its technology patents, basically giving away everything it knows to its competition for free. We are told this is to speed up worldwide development of electric cars, but once again, it isn't believable. In theory, that makes sense. You want to share the patents and move this thing along in theory, but in the real world, corporations would never do that. Never. The board of directors of a real company would have fired Musk in a split second for something like that. It now looks to me like Musk was probably inserted into the Tesla Motors expressly to destroy it. And that wouldn't be the first time. I mean, I think most out there, or maybe some, have seen Who Killed the Electric Car, the documentary made, I think it was probably 2006 or 7. The General Motors released, actually built a really well-built, for the technology at the time, electric car. And I want to say it was the mid to late 90s, mid 90s. I could be wrong. But as usual, when they release these, and I think Toyota did it as well, they release them as leases. You cannot buy the car. It's a lease vehicle. So the company can call them back in anytime they want. You can obviously never really own it. And a number of the owners of those cars wanted to keep them. But instead, General Motors recalled all of them, and then destroyed them. Who knows whether it was a beta test to see how the public would respond to electric cars. I don't know. But they always have had a love-hate relationship with electric cars, as has the public. And many don't know that electric cars preceded gas internal combustion engines from the get-go. The electric cars were the go-to vehicle. They didn't really have a lot of experience with gas internal combustion engines at the time. There might have been larger applications, but certainly not passenger cars. And it wasn't until the proliferation of the oil network of oil companies, and Standard Oil in particular, and Henry Ford, and then that went full steam ahead, and it totally eclipsed, if not squashed, the electric cars. But anyway, that's another video. The board of directors of a real company would have fired Musk in a split second for something like that. Now, it now looks to me like Musk was probably inserted to Tesla Motors to expressly destroy it. Big Oil may have inserted Musk into Tesla in order to eviscerate the competition from the inside out. I wonder if Eberhard ever considered that possibility. Eberhard was one of the two above in the picture with the car. He appears to have considered that possibility since, remember, he said that Musk had sullied Tesla Motors' integrity and blemished Tesla Motors' reputation and prosperity. But what if Musk didn't just accidentally sully Tesla's prosperity? Again, none of it looks like an accident to me. That possibility is greatly increased by further research. Top Gear in the UK and the New York Times both published or aired very damaging accounts of the Tesla cars, showing they had a range of only 55 miles. A range diminished even further by cold weather. Given that both Top Gear and the New York Times also have intelligence ties, intelligence runs the media in both the U.S. and the U.K. Many don't know that, but many do, and more every day are finding out that any news, not your favorite, or probably inclusive of your favorite, I should say, is run by the intelligence agencies. And that's just a fact, and it's probably almost always been that way. You should ask yourself why one intelligence front would be attacking another. if intelligence genuinely wished to push electric cars via their own man, Musk, why would they allow these programs to air or publish? The answer is these programs were intended to damage Tesla Motors. It looks to me like Tesla was infiltrated. I give it 2 more years, tops. That's interesting, and I've heard that too, that Tesla will most likely fail. But, maybe it won't. Who knows? Finally, we find that Musk gave $10 million this year to the Future of Life Institute. This is curious since although Musk has said he considers artificial intelligence to be the greatest danger to the future, and although Future of Life also claims this is one of the greatest dangers, the institute was actually founded and is advised by a group of techno-fascists, including Stephen Hawking, Max Tegmark, Jan Tellin, Anthony Aguirre, George Church, Frank Wilczek, and Stuart Russell. I'm not familiar with most of them. We know Stephen Hawking has passed away. I will comment on most of them below. Like Musk, all are promoting a matrix future while pretending to be concerned about it. Musk also has gone on record questioning AI as dangerous, yet he mentions AI present in the operating of the Neuralink in that video we had just seen. So, it could be playing devil's advocate on purpose just to make the public aware of it, because naturally they need to address those issues, and most of the public would have issues initially. But they always quell those by weighing both sides. It's interesting how they do that, and then they push ahead with the agenda. So let's go on here. I have covered Hawking in previous papers. Max Tegmark has promoted the idea that everything that exists mathematically also exists physically, which is among the stupidest ideas ever put on paper. I have uncovered giant piles of fudged mainstream equations in my papers on my science site. And if Tegmark's thesis were true, it would mean all the bad equations existed equally with the good equations. Of course, new physicists and mathematicians want you to believe this, since if it were true, it would give you no way to disprove their bad equations and bad ideas. The natural spin-off of Tegmark's thesis is that every bad physical idea a lousy physicist can propose also exists physically. The natural spin-off of Tegmark's thesis is that every bad physical idea a lousy physicist can propose also exists physically. And the next step is to propose that every such physicist who comes up with an equation, good or bad, deserves the title of God, since he just created a real physical thing and a Nobel Prize. Okay, well, they hand those out like popsicles anymore, Nobel Prizes. They're so diluted. Jan Tellin has a BSc in physics, his thesis having been on interstellar travel using warps in space-time, which means they are now giving degrees in physics for science fiction. We have no evidence of warps in space-time, and the Einstein equations used to predict them are flawed, as I have proved. Tallinn is also involved in the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, which takes us a step closer to figuring out what is going on here. It is very like the Future of Life Institute, composed of the same people, but a bit easier to unravel. Ray Kurzweil, this guy's a real AI proponent, man and machine. You have to look him up, Ray Kurzweil. This guy's just nothing short of a wacko monster. Was the director of MIRI from 2007 to 2010, and he is a notorious transhumanist and futurist. Although he created some useful devices when he was younger, he later either went off the deep end or was hired by intelligence to seem to do so. He began writing books about AI like The Singularity is Near, which promotes ideas like this. Kurzweil predicts the technology advances will irreversibly transform people as they augment their minds and bodies with genetic alterations, nanotechnology, and artificial intelligence. Once the singularity has been reached, Kurzweil says that machine intelligence will be infinitely more powerful than all human intelligence combined. Afterwards, he predicts intelligence will radiate outward from the planet until it saturates the universe. So you take that and digest it any way you want. Doesn't sound like someone who is too concerned about the dangers of artificial intelligence, does it? Which confirms what I said about Musk. Musk and all these other guys aren't concerned about AI. They are only concerned with hooking you up to machines as fast as possible. So you will no longer be a worry to them. If I were hooked up to the proper machines, I wouldn't be writing this, would I? Frank Wilczek is one of the top fake physicists in the world, along with Hawking, Susskind, and a few dozen others. I have mentioned him before in my papers, notably in my paper, Destroying Asymptotic Freedom. Wilczek gets his Nobel Prize for asymptotic, I'm not familiar with that, freedom. But since my nuclear diagrams utterly destroys the strong force, and since asymptotic freedom concerns the strong force, he doesn't impress me too much. I can see right through him. To help you see through him, notice he appeared on Penn and Teller's bullshit. I've outed Penn Jillette as a probable agent, so Wilczek is just hanging with fellow agents. For someone with such a long career, Wilczek has done precious little real physics, or none, actually. He is known for his ideas on axions, but I have already destroyed those as well. There are no axions, and the theory was never even interesting. Given my work on large photons, the theory of axions now just looks pathetic. Wilczek's being involved with these creeps is in transhumanism, and AI only confirms my opinion of him as a total towering phony, one probably created, like Musk, from the whole cloth by intelligence. Let's see. George Church is another spook scientist involved in synthetic biology. Beyond the expected red flags, we see a curious cross-pollinating red flag by which Church is said to have invented a use for DNA to detect dark matters, WIMPs. Since I have proved dark matter is just charge, there are no WIMPs, and since you cannot use DNA to detect something that doesn't exist, this claim about Church does not impress me, just the reverse. He has worked on cloning a mammoth, going so far as to insert genes in living elephants. He has said the same could be done with a Neanderthal, although he claims he isn't working on it. Given what we know of past government programs, that assurance doesn't reassure me too much. Church is a big pusher of open consent, which is the opposite of genetic privacy. Basically, it means he thinks the government should be able to do anything they want with genes, including your genes, without your consent. The government doesn't consent or doesn't openly gain or express any interest in your consent anyway. Very little. I think most people know that by now. To see just the least awful use of open consent, you may go here. Church, like the rest of these Frankensteins, has been on TED several times, which is another red flag. TED may have started out as something good, a useful platform to discuss scientific projects and whatnot, and maybe useful projects for the betterment of mankind. But like everything, they co-opt them. Something that has already established itself as a useful quality, they will insert themselves in through the back door, whether they get in through funding or just infiltrate it and take it over. Bill Gates is another of these manufactured billionaire spooks, and he pretty much completes the circle here. You can look up Bill Gates, look up his father. I forget his, Google his father, or maybe better yet, use DuckDuckGo or some other search engine, so you don't have to go through pages and pages of useless garbage. His father is a known eugenics advocate, open advocate of eugenics. Addendum, February 19th, 2018. I can't believe the whole SpaceX story still has legs. Are people really buying the Falcon Heavy launch and the red car in space? I don't think they are, but since the media just reports what it wants to report, everyone thinks their neighbors are buying this. Talk to your neighbors. They aren't buying this any more than you are. Everyone can see this is a fraud. It isn't even as believable as the new Star Wars movies. But they push it out there, and people see it on television, and sadly, most people believe what they see on TV. It's a foregone conclusion. I don't think they question it. If it's on television, it must be real. If you can't see that, here are some hints for you. Look closely at the people narrating the event who claim to be engineers. That was my first big laugh. Do these people look like engineers to you? No, they are actors reading from a teleprompter. It's pretty difficult to tell make an educated guess between that. I mean, actors, they sign these people on to look the part. A lot of these guys do, as far as I'm concerned, they do. Some of them do look like engineers. They can look like police officers. They can look like newscasters, doctors. Just put them in the proper wardrobe, and if they're good actors, they can pull it off. It's been done many times before. Remember movies? There's a fine line between reality, or what our perception of reality is. Next, notice the constant cheering, which is obviously pre-recorded in the studio. This is making reference to what we watched earlier, the Mars, I can't even think of the name of it. Why would these bozos be cheering for an hour nonstop? It seemed really, it's almost like they held a press conference so they could get a lot of cheering in there because the content was pretty useless. Then watch when they pan across the people cheering. Do they look like scientists or engineers? No, it looks like SpaceX only hires people off Malibu Beach and the half pipe. Then watch as the rockets come back down and land. Rockets don't land like that. You can't reverse a takeoff like that. Those are films run in reverse and synced. But the reason I am attaching this addendum is that the media is reporting some people are crying foul on SpaceX, but it pretends everyone who thinks this is a fake flat earther. I told you a couple years ago when this flat earth stuff began to be promoted heavily on YouTube and online that this was why. The mainstream creates its own lunatic fringe opposition so that when you disagree with them, they can lump you in with the lunatic fringe. Oh, everyone who thinks SpaceX is fake is a flat earther. No, I think SpaceX is fake, and I'm not a flat earther. Me personally, as far as the flat earther thing, flat earth narration goes, I've never been outside of Earth's orbit and I've been able to see the Earth for what it is with my own eyes. So how can I go either way? Personally, I don't think it's a spinning, speeding bullet either. That's the mainstream version. And scientism, because there is real science and then there is scientism. So for all intents and purposes, it does feel more of that it is a still body. But again, how can you go either way with any degree of certainty? You can't. So there are other bigger fish to fry anyway before we get into that mess. But they can't try again because they have nothing else. They have no rebuttal. The only thing they have is a knee-jerk dismissal based on the flat earth theory their own people created. So once you get past that, it is silence. You will tell me there are people on YouTube saying this is fake and then promoting flat earth. Yes, of course they are, because that is part of the project. They want you to think there is some connection between flat earth and criticizing NASA or SpaceX. There isn't. That connection has been manufactured, just as there are no serial killers and no real communists. That's interesting to take a look at too. The entire it all depends on what they classify as a serial killer. It's hidden. Anyway, that's another can of worms to open. And communism is just any of the other isms. Socialism, communism, they're all the same type of control mechanism. There are no real flat earthers. Every single one of them is an agent in disguise pretending to be a flat earther, in their narration anyway. Even before the flat earth began being promoted and before SpaceX came out, I could tell you this is how they do it. I was telling my readers that Flat Earth Society was a NASA front a decade ago. The Flat Earth Society is back from the 1890s. Back then, it was used to protect NASA from criticism, but now it is used to protect SpaceX. That way, they don't have to respond to the actual content of your criticism. They can just dismiss you as a flat earther or other wingnut. It's like the whole tinfoil hat wearing group. You know, everybody's a tinfoil hat wearer. This is the way it is done. They like to lump you into a box and then label you as such. Like you're either a Republican or Democrat or a Libertarian, or you're just, you have no clue what's going on. You have to be in a box, according to them. I have been the premier naysayer in many fields for many years, so I know this firsthand. Not once have these people addressed the content of my papers. They are not paid to address the content in a scientific manner and couldn't do so if they were. They are paid to misdirect, talking about anything but the facts at hand. If the subject is photons, for instance, on my science site, they immediately misdirect the discussion into flat earth or my hair or ballet or some joke I made about Jim Fetzer or how I once misspelled a word. It is called sophistry. It is also called pettifogging. It is also called being paid liars and spinners, and the mainstream has an infinite well of those. What I encourage you to do is make a list of all the places promoting SpaceX or calling people who think SpaceX is fake flat earthers and then boycott them. Even better, contact them and tell them you can see through them like the thinnest glass. Start with iflscience.com. I've not heard of that, which ranks #1 on a search on this topic, and then work your way down. Oh, and I tell them I sent you. But anyway, that's interesting, and it's a good idea though. Explore all these. These highlighted in blue are all links. Click on them and see where they take you. But anyway, we're going to end this video here at another 30 minutes. Sorry it went on so long, but I hope you explore some of these spokes in the big wheel, because we'll be back with some more, and we'll see if we can open them up a little bit and look inside. All right, thanks for watching and listening. Take care. Bye.